Hello everybody and welcome. In this video, we're going to go over the TFSA and how it could benefit you in 2026 and beyond. The first thing I want to discuss is what a TFSA is not. So the TFSA is not a savings account in the same way you could open up a regular everyday savings account at a bank. It is also not an investment instrument that you could purchase in the same way that you could purchase a GIC mutual fund, ETF, or a stock. Instead, the way I look at it is that the TFSA is my home in which I house my investments, right? So the best way of showing you this example is by putting up this illustration on screen now. So you can see here, I have my TFSA home or portfolio or basket, however you would like to look at it. And you could see within my TFSA home, I have my GICs, my mutual funds, my stocks, as well as my ETFs. So now that I've driven that message home as to what a TFSA is, your next question for me is going to be, so what? And what I would like to tell you is that if you're new to the TFSA in 2026, it could benefit you because all the gains that you withdraw from your TFSA are completely tax-free. So for example, if you purchase a stock at $5 a share and you sell it off at $10 a share, that $5 gain is not subject to capital gains tax. This could potentially save you thousands of dollars throughout your lifetime. So this is a fantastic tool for all Canadians and permanent residents of Canada to use and take advantage of, right? Now, let's go back to that house analogy, right? If we go back to the house analogy that I was using earlier, there are always house rules associated with any home, and the TFSA is no different. The biggest rule to discuss in terms of the TFSA is your contribution limits. The TFSA came into existence back in 2009, and we use it up until today in 2026. If you have not contributed anything between these 2 years, the total amount that you would have available to you to invest as of 2026 would be $109,000. So every year your contribution increases. So for example, in 2026, the additional contribution room that you have available to you is $7,000. Now, not to worry, if you can't contribute $7,000 in 2026, that amount will roll over into 2027 and years beyond. Now, the main thing to keep in mind here is not to over-contribute. If you do over-contribute, you will be subject to 1% tax on the overage, right? So the best way to track your TFSA contribution limit is by logging on to your CRA account on the CRA website, right? So if you log on to your account every year, once per year, it will update your total contribution limit for any given year. Now, as you make contributions or sell-offs during the year, that contribution limit is not going to be updated. It only updates once a year. So the best way to keep track of it, what I do is I use a spreadsheet. Now, if you're not very familiar with Microsoft Excel, the good news for you is that I have a course for you. I have over 100 different lecture videos individually bookmarked so that you can learn at your own pace. So if you don't know how to do a VLOOKUP, I have a couple of videos on VLOOKUPs. If it's pivot tables that you're after, I have an entire chapter on pivot table. So if you would like to accelerate your knowledge and go from beginner to pro in Microsoft Excel, my course is the course for you, and the link is in the comment section below. Now, let's get back on to track and let's talk about the rest of the house rules in regards to the TFSA. The next rule I would like to talk about is the restrictions. You do need to be 18 years of age, you do need to be a permanent resident of Canada, and you do need to have a social insurance number. So let's say, for example, in 2005, if you are domestically a Canadian born and raised and you turn 18 in 2005, or if you immigrated into Canada and you became a permanent resident in 2005 and you have never contributed to your TFSA from 2005 until today, your total contribution limit would be the $109,000 that we discussed earlier. Now, let's fast forward that example by 10 years. So let's say in 2015, a domestic person turned 18 or an immigrant to Canada received their PR status. In that case, they would only have $78,000 of contribution room, right? So that's the first rule that I wanted to discuss in addition to your cumulative total. Now, another house rule that is very important to follow is day trading. If you are a trader and you would like to take advantage of the TFSA to make trades without being charged tax, this is not an option for day traders. You will get flagged by the CRA if you do too many transactions within your TFSA, and the entire amount will be subject to taxes. So if you are a day trader, do not do your day trades within the TFSA. Another rule to discuss is residency. If you are a permanent resident in Canada, or if you are a Canadian citizen and you leave Canada and you go live abroad for 1 or 2 years, however many years, for those years, those additional contribution limits that you would have had in that year, they're not available to you. So for example, if you spend the entirety of 2026 outside of Canada, that $7,000 that we talked about earlier is not available to you. But you could still contribute to your TFSA if you have room, but you will get charged 1% tax on all your contributions. So keep that in mind. The next rule that I like to discuss is the next year rule. So let's say, for example, in 2026, you withdrew $5,000 from your TFSA. So let's say you sold off some stocks and you put $5,000 into your bank account. Now you could do whatever you want with this money, but you are able to recontribute that $5,000, you do have to do it in the next year. So if you did that transaction in 2026, you would have to wait until 2027 to recontribute that $5,000. If you do recontribute in 2026, you will be subject to 1% taxes on the overage in the event that you do go above your total contribution limit. Now, there are a couple of other things I'd like to discuss. I wouldn't really call these rules, but something to keep in mind. There are some investments that are not allowed within the TFSA. So primarily, it's private equity in which you own 10% or more in a company. That is not, for a private company, right? That is not allowed within your TFSA. Neither is over-the-counter stock. So you are not able to put those two items into your TFSA. And another thing that I would like to discuss with you is that you could have multiple TFSA accounts opened at multiple financial institutions, right? So for example, you could have a TFSA opened at BMO, CIBC, and Scotiabank, for example, right? But you still need to stay within your total cumulative limit, right? So between all of the banks, you do need to keep track and make sure that you're staying within your limits. Another thing to mention is that you could assign a beneficiary at all the different financial institutions in which you have a TFSA account set up, right? So you could leave your TFSA in the event of death. You could leave it to your spouse, a friend, a family member, whoever you assign it to, right? So that brings us to the end of the video, guys. Let me know what you think. Put your comments in the comment section below. I'm here for the good, the bad, and the ugly. I would like to hear what you're thinking about it. I'm trying to grow this YouTube channel in 2026, and I would really appreciate your support. So please subscribe to the channel if you would like to. Also like the video, and I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you learned something, and as always, keep fit and have fun.